My husband and I were hungry and didn't feel like cooking, so we drove to White Castle. I should add that this White Castle is probably not in the best neighborhood in the world, but it's not like going out after dusk is going to get you mugged or something. It's taking forever for someone to take our order for some reason. We're sitting there bullshitting when this guy starts to wander up to the car. He's a dirty, stringy-haired, skinny mess, and he looks like he's high on something. For a few minutes, the guy just stands there, swaying back and forth awkwardly. I don't feel like being asked for money or a ride or whatever, so I rolled my window up. There's something off about this dude, other than the fact that he seems high. At about this point, a feeling tells me to lock the doors now. I lock the doors about 2 seconds before he grabs the back door handle and starts pulling on it. I freak out and hit the gas. We circle the building and park out on the far end of the parking lot, because I want to tell management that there's a creep out here, and damn it, we're determined to get our food. After we park, we can see the drive-thru from where we are, and we watch this guy walk back to a car, no longer swaying or looking strung out. He says something to the driver. The driver then gets into the passenger seat and lets the dude drive, and away they go. My husband theorizes that they wanted to steal my car to sell it for money to pay for their much nicer car or drugs.
This all literally just happened within the past hour. I got out of work at 6:30 p.m. and went to McDonald's to get an iced coffee. I pull up to the drive-thru and there's a red truck in front of me with a cap on the bed. It's super wide, so I can't see their mirrors and thus can't get a glimpse of who is inside. I'm minding my own business, listening to unsolved mysteries on YouTube, when I see that red truck is pulled up to the second pickup window. You know, there's the window where you pay and then 2 separate windows where you pick up your food. I didn't think anything of it, and just assumed they had a big order and the McDonald's employee asked them to pull up so I could get my iced coffee. I look up to see the truck's reverse lights come on. Okay, they must have pulled up a little too far and are backing up a little. No big deal. And they keep backing up without signaling to me at all that they are backing up. I slowly back up too. Luckily, no one's behind me. They keep backing up until they're finally parked at the first pickup window now. The McDonald's employee looks out the window at me, shrugs, and gives me a look like, I don't know why they did that. A few minutes go by. At this point, I'm just thinking about how strange and not part of common etiquette it was to back up without signaling to anyone you need to do so. They could have easily hit me had I not been looking straight ahead. Curious as to what they were doing. Now, 5 minutes at least goes by. No one is being given any food. I just want my iced coffee, so I'm kind of annoyed that they backed up, thinking maybe they were told to go to the second window since I only needed the coffee, but they suddenly felt like refusing to do so would get McDonald's to get them their food faster. And thus, they backed up to the first pickup window? I don't know. Anyways, I continue to sit there and wait for my food when I see the passenger door of the truck open. Out comes an older man, like 65 to 70 years old, probably. He was wearing light khaki-colored overalls and a dirty white t-shirt. He starts walking slowly over to my car. I'm thinking maybe he's going to apologize to me for not signaling that they needed to back up. He gets to my passenger door window, turns so he was facing the window head-on, and just stares at me. I'm waiting for him to signal to put my window down, thinking he had something to say. He doesn't do anything. He just stands there and stares. He starts to lift his hand towards the door handle. I quickly lock the door. He scowls and walks back to the truck and gets back into the passenger side. They immediately drive away the second he closes the door. They didn't get any food. They didn't get anything. And they just left. I pull up to the drive-thru to finally get my iced coffee. It's been well over 10 minutes at this point, and I head home. At this point, I have more questions than answers. Why did they back up without signaling? Why did they need to back up at all? Why did he get out of his truck, and why was he about to open my door? Why didn't he say anything? Why didn't they get their food or drinks? It might not be the creepiest thing to happen on this sub, but the whole ordeal made me so anxious that I was shaking the whole ride home. I'm not the best at confrontation, clearly. I just wish I had some insight or understanding to exactly what happened here.
A few years ago, when I was in my mid-20s, I was working at my job as a manager in a fast food restaurant. It was a slow afternoon and we only had one order. I went over and handed him his tray. The man stuck out his hand and said, "How much does a polar bear weigh?" I had heard this line before and internally groaned. Enough to break the ice. "Hi, I'm Josh. You must be Storm of Tara?" he said, looking at my name tag. "Yes. Hi, Josh. I have to get back to work now." I smiled and turned away. "Wait!" the man said loudly. I turned back towards him, trying my best to keep my smile in place. I'd had enough creep encounters in my day to know one when I saw him. He had too much confidence and he wasn't even at all attractive looking. Still, he was really going to go ahead with this, wasn't he? And while I was at work and I had to be nice too. "Would you go on a date with me?" My mind started reeling with the possibilities to reject him. I have a boyfriend, I'm a lesbian, I just don't want to date some strange guy I never saw before in my life. Not right now, okay? I ended up stumbling out, still trying to be polite and get him away from me. He wouldn't take no for an answer. I kept saying it and eventually a car pulled up in the drive-thru. "I really have to go now. Bye," I said, turning away and just leaving him standing there trying to call me back. One of my employees asked if I had known him. No, never seen him before. I hope he never comes back. If only that hope could come true. Shortly after the incident, I started working nights. During the nighttime, only the drive-thru was open, so no guests inside. It was kinda nice working those shifts, if it wasn't for Josh. For the next few weeks, this man kept coming through my drive-thru bringing me things, like a rose, a box of chocolates. I kept turning down his advances the best way I could. I'm not at all that forceful of a person, but there's only so many ways you can say no. He also kept calling the store at all shifts to see if I was there. He would not leave me alone. And I'm not lying about me rejecting him constantly. I kept telling him I didn't want to date him. He still kept coming back. I can't tell you how much he just creeped me out either. One night, I was driving home from work and I swore I saw his car behind me. I freaked out, and I drove all over town until I lost the car. I wasn't even sure it was him, but I didn't want him finding out where I lived. I could only imagine him standing by my window, which is at ground level, and watching me sleep or even more perverse, creepy things. I had to put an end to this. Josh came through my drive-thru again, and I had finally had enough. "Josh, I will never date you. Never. Please, leave me alone. Do not mistake this for me being coy or something. I do not like you. Leave me alone." The hurt on his face was apparent. "Really?" he said. I threw my hands up in the air and walked away. It was getting to the point where I wanted to call the cops on him, although it was doubtful they'd do anything since he wasn't violent or anything against me. And Josh pulled away. Sometime later that night, I heard him pull up to the drive-thru speaker again. "Hey, I need to tell you something." He pulled up to the window. I refused to even go near it, and one of my male employees spoke with him. The male employee gave me a letter when Josh pulled away. I opened up the letter and it was a card. Inside was written, "Thanks to you rejecting me, I will never trust another woman again. How dare you hurt me this way?" It went on for a while like that. I couldn't help but to laugh at just how pathetic it all sounded. And Josh never came back to my drive-thru again.
At the unnamed cow-themed fast food restaurant that I work, there's a guy who always comes in for breakfast and gets the exact same thing. 1, sometimes 2 biscuits, and a large fry. We'll call him Bob. But if you're interested, you could probably find him. He's the type of customer who you want to get through the line and out of your face as quickly as possible. Not because he's confrontational, just because he gives a weird vibe. Generally, he's nice though. But if you take too long or you're less than friendly, he'll bite back at you. In this case, he bit back hard. I was outside taking orders on an iPad when Bob drove up in his car. Usually he comes into the restaurant, but with the quarantine in full effect, everyone comes to the drive-thru. Because of this, I assumed he was already in a bad mood. So I took his order and got done with him in 10 seconds. A few cars later, my manager comes out of the restaurant and yells at me to come inside. This was outside of the norm because I had only been outside for 30 minutes. Usually we're out there for an hour or two before changing. I finish my current order and head back in. Keep in mind, this is around 8:30, and the dining room is closed, so there are only 4 or so people up front. I go over to drive-thru to see what needs done and overhear everyone else talking to one of my coworkers, who I'll call Matt. Matt's sister, apparently they're an unnamed cow-themed fast food restaurant type family, is asking him if he called the police. My nosy, interested ears prick up at this point, and I start asking what happened. I'm filled in that Bob apparently pulled a gun on Matt because he accidentally shorted his change. I then learned that Bob was waiting for said change in a parking spot in the back of the store. I asked my manager if this was why he told me to come inside, to which he affirmed, remarking how he didn't know that he worked at the ghetto, unnamed cow-themed fast food restaurant. A police officer arrived about 15 minutes later and starts asking Matt questions about Bob and what the gun looked like. I, with my dangerous curiosity, peeked out the back door and saw another 2 cops waiting out back. It was at this time that Bob is brought into the restaurant with 2 police officers. For what reason, I'm not sure. All the managers and our operator talk to the police, and then Bob is patted down and hauled out. I would like to close out this story with one thing that I think is absolutely hilarious. Our operator of 45 years recently retired, like last week. So the day this happened was our interim operator's 2nd day at our restaurant. I'm sure that they're psyched for another 4 to 6 months with us.
My daughter and I went to the drive-thru for a late-night snack. As I was ordering, this guy ran out from the side of the building and jumped out in front of my car. My little Yorkie Obi, who was sitting in my lap, didn't like that at all. Normally, he likes everyone, but why would he be friendly to some strange guy who's taking exaggerated movie slasher stomps towards my car? I stopped ordering while Obi went nuts, and I was alternating staring at this guy while glancing around to see if I had a quick exit in case the guy made a run for my car. The guy kept stomping forward, but now he started barking in a deep, threatening voice like a large dog and staring straight at Obi. I was afraid Obi was going to jump out the window to attack, but my hands were frozen on the wheel. And then I got pissed. He was scaring my daughter and me and freaking my dog out. I had a sudden crazy thought to just gun it and run him down. Move, bitch. Your barking ass is standing between me and my quarter pounder. Of course, I never would have done that, but I almost reversed and drove off. Suddenly, he stopped barking and ran off the way he came. The whole thing only took about 30 seconds, but I was shaken and jittery the whole drive home. My daughter thought it was funny. Maybe he meant it as a joke. But I wasn't amused.